Ted Strickland passes the torch and Governor Kasich's jobs record.
From the Patel studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News, Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Dale Butland, communications director for Innovation Ohio, and Bob Clay, Republican strategist.
It was not a surprise, but Ted Strickland's endorsement of Ed Fitzgerald marks another milepost in the race for governor. Strickland praised Fitzgerald as a county executive, an FBI agent, and a prosecutor.
John Kasich versus Ed Fitzgerald. You know, that contrast should cause every one of us to want to get engaged in this campaign by giving our money, by using our influence, and by volunteering our time. Ed will make a great governor, and I enthusiastically support his candidacy, and I ask you to do the same.
Republicans seemed to shrug, releasing a statement that said by accepting the endorsement, Ed Fitzgerald tied himself to the record of job loss and budget deficits left by the Strickland administration. Dale Butland, most voters are going to remember Ted Strickland as the man who lost to John Kasich. So how is this endorsement going to help Ed Fitzgerald?
Well, look, that a former Democratic governor would endorse another Democrat for the same office is not exactly surprising. What I think is surprising, and we just saw it there, is how the Republicans immediately began their old tactic of insulting the intelligence of the voters. They keep saying, try to attack all Democrats by saying Ted Strickland personally lost 400,000 jobs, when voters are smart enough to understand that Ohio lost thousands of jobs for the same reason that America lost millions of jobs, namely the biggest recession since the Great Depression, which happened under a Republican president named George W. Bush.
This endorsement came middle of summer, 16 months before the election. Does that say anything?
Well, I think what's interesting is that it came 6 or 7 months after Ted Strickland said he wasn't running. And so I'm not sure if it was because Ted Strickland was waiting to see if Cordray would get the endorsement by the U.S. Senate, which he did, and then that kind of cleared the decks and it was all in for Ed. I was also kind of curious why they didn't do a personal appearance together. It seemed a little lackluster to me.
Well, I think the reason why he came out this week and did an endorsement is the fact that the mayor of Columbus, Mike Coleman, was asked just this week whether he was going to endorse Ed Fitzgerald, and he wouldn't say. He just said, let's leave that for next year. What's happening is Governor Kasich's building, especially in the urban counties like Franklin and Cuyahoga, very good relationships with the mayors of Cleveland and Columbus, Mike Coleman in Columbus and Frank Jackson in Cleveland. And I think the Democrats are getting worried. I mean, I think they believe in. The other thing that was interesting about the Strickland, I agree with Laura, I think it was a little strange they didn't do something, together live. But what Strickland talked about or in this endorsement was about how he didn't do well in Cuyahoga County, and that's going to be turned around next year because of Ed Fitzgerald. And I think the Democrats are getting concerned that the governor's been making inroads. He's working with a lot of these mayors to improve their school districts, do things like that. That's getting him a lot of positive press.
Jim Siegel, what are the chances, though, that Mayor Coleman and Mayor Jackson actually endorse John Kasich over Ed Fitzgerald?
Probably pretty low in the end, but I don't think it really helps either one of them or their cities to pick a fight before they have to. Yeah. I think they both have worked with the governor, on some issues on a pretty good basis, and I don't think they want to mix it up. I know that Mayor Coleman has done this in the past when when Mike DeWine was in the Senate. I know they made a joint appearance together once, and it was several months before the election, and at that time against Sherrod Brown, and I said, well, what does this mean in terms of your endorsement? And he kind of gave the same kind of answers. I'm not getting into that. This is about policy, not about the political endorsement.
If anything else, he's probably just being polite, because here John Kasich was in town to sign the education levy bill, which would help the mayor's efforts in the schools, and then to say, okay, I'm going to endorse his opponent right then and there just wouldn't be good.
Well, and that's why I think they tried to get Governor Strickland out there. And I don't know why Dale is arguing about the fact that he did have 10.8% unemployment while he was governor. He did leave an $8 billion deficit when he left the governor's office under President Barack Obama. So, and the 10.8% unemployment was under Obama's tenure, too.
Now, Bob, I know. I mean, how many times have we discussed this? There is never a deficit in Ohio.
We can't have one.
Exactly right.
Governor Kasich took care of it.
And you keep saying he left an $8 billion deficit. There was no deficit. Governor Strickland balanced his budgets just like every other governor has balanced their budgets. If you're talking about a hole to fill
yes.
because of the stimulus money from the federal government, which you criticize Governor
you can't
Strickland
build
for spending,
budgets on money that's not going to be there
Bob,
in another 2 years.
Bob, that stimulus money was given. Governor Strickland used it precisely
Taxpayer
for the purpose
money.
it was given,
Taxpayer
to spend.
Money.
That was the whole idea. That's why stimulus money was given around the
country. And then
country.
when you don't have it, like you didn't when Governor Kasich's coming in, he had to fill that hole that Strickland left.
Nobody told him he had to cut schools and local governments while he gave more tax cuts
so
to the wealthiest Ohioans.
Let's have Governor Strickland raise taxes on everybody to fill it out.
How about the wealthiest Ohioans, Bob? Let's just stop cutting taxes for that.
Well, I wish you guys would do that, but you want to go after everybody else.
Let's talk about jobs. In most elections, the deciding factor is the economy. If things are going well, those in power tend to stay. If things are not going well, voters tend to change their leaders. So we are bound to hear a lot about the jobs records of Governor Kasich and Ted Strickland, the man, and the Democratic Party who preceded the current governor. The impact on governors and the impact they have on the economy is questionable, but here are the raw bottom line numbers. In Democrat Ted Strickland's term, Ohio lost a net of 379,000 jobs. Since John Kasich took office, Ohio has seen a net gain of 139,000 jobs. Now, those numbers, of course, do not tell the whole story. Ohio started adding jobs in the last year of Ted Strickland's administration, and job growth has slowed over the past year in the Kasich administration. So, Jim Siegel, 139,000 net jobs since he took office. Is that enough for John Kasich to claim an Ohio miracle?
I don't think miracle is probably the word I would use. I mean, 139,000 jobs translates to a 2.8% job growth over 2.5 years. That is not considered a very robust increase. It ranks 32nd nationally. So, I mean, and that's really, to me, that's when you're looking at jobs numbers, that's often how I like to do. I like to see, well, where do we compare? Because Ohio's not, we're not an island. We don't operate in this country by ourselves. How are we doing compared to everybody else? And 32nd, I mean, it's better than where we were. I think we were down probably in the 40s before, and I think things have gotten better, and I think the governor can talk about that. Is it a miracle? 16,000 jobs in the last year, 0.3% job growth in the last year. That ranks us 47th. That's not exactly miracle material if I was the one reporting it.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that because, as you know, Mike, Innovation Ohio, the think tank for which I work, did a study this week. It's on our website, innovationohio.org. Your viewers can see it. It's actually worse than that. What's happened is we've had a complete stall over the last year, not just the last month or two, over the last year. Between June of 2012 and June of 2013, we've created 16,000 jobs, a 0.3% growth rate. It's 82% behind the national average, and we rank 47th in the country.
But isn't a stall, which is what your word is, better than a huge loss, which we saw from 2007, 2008?
Mike, we had the greatest recession since the Great Depression before. You can hardly compare that to where the whole nation is recovering. That's my point. We're 82% behind the national average under John Kasich. So what I want to know, Bob, is that if his tax and budget policies are so good and Jobs Ohio is doing such a great job, why do we rank 82% behind the national average?
Dale, you just can't handle the facts. We lost 370,000 jobs under Strickland. We lost that many. We gained over 130,000 so far. Like Jim, I checked. If you look at the June unemployment rate for Ohio, we're at 7.2. I checked our neighboring states. There's only one that's lower than us, West Virginia. Michigan, which is the most comparable state to us, manufacturing-wise and economy-wise, is at 8.7%. Okay, we've been ranked below the national unemployment rate that your president's done a lousy job with consistently while he's been governor. Also, we have a national economy that's only growing at 1.5% so far this year. That's not even enough to replace the jobs we've lost, obviously.
You left out a pretty important fact. Of this 139,000 jobs that you say has been created under the Kasich administration, and that's true, 123,000 of those occurred during the first 18 months he was in office. Now remember, he didn't come into office until January of 2011. His budget didn't pass until June, and Jobs Ohio wasn't created until July. So it's hard for him to claim credit for those jobs that occurred before his policies ever came into effect.
That's my question to Laura. How much can a governor control what's going on with this unemployment rate?
I think it's a supporting role at best. I think that the main driver for jobs is the private sector. Government can help by having various economic development incentives and reducing regulations and that sort of thing. I don't think that a president or a governor really deserves the amount of credit they tend to get in the rising economy and the amount of blame that they tend to get in the suffering economy.
But yet, that's the way voters oftentimes,
right.
As Bill Clinton famously said, it's the economy, stupid, and that's what drives elections. So we'll see what happens over the next year and a half. Another plan to expand Medicaid in Ohio surfaced this week. Democratic State Senator Capri Cafaro's plan would expand Medicaid to meet the requirements of the new federal health care law, Obamacare, with the feds picking up the additional costs. The plan would include a, quote, circuit breaker that would cancel the expansion if the feds do not keep their promises. And Cafaro's plan has tools to get Medicaid recipients onto private insurance plans. She challenged Republican leaders to act.
This is the kind of issue where we need courage, where we cannot be concerned about ourselves. We need to be concerned with you. I mean, I'm sorry. How can you be concerned with yourself when there are people out there that are sick, are dying, are working, and have no access? And you know you can solve that problem? Why would you care about a primary challenge?
So obviously that message, Bob Clegg, is aimed at conservative Republicans who fear a challenge from the even farther right. Is this plan enough to convince them to expand Medicaid?
Well, I don't know. I doubt it. And obviously, Governor Kasich wants to do this Medicaid expansion. The Speaker of the House, Bill Batchelder, and the Senate President, Keith Faber, have real reservations. You talk about the opt-out clause if the federal government doesn't give us the money. I mean, the problem we have with this whole law is President Obama is going around deciding what parts of it he wants to put into effect and what parts he doesn't. And I think the legislative leaders just feel that the federal government's not going to be there when you need them to pay for this kind of an expansion. And that's why they are so concerned about jumping into this whole pool, because you don't know if the federal government's going to be there or not, because we have no clear, idea of what they're going to do.
Jan Brewer, who wagged her finger at President Obama one time, she's convinced. She's going to expand Medicaid in Arizona.
Well, and so is the governor of Florida, and like I said, Governor Kasich believes in that too. I just think our legislative leaders believe that this law is so flawed that we haven't even seen what the other aspects of it's going to be, and that we need to see how it's going to be implemented, if it's going to be implemented, and what parts are going to be implemented, because we don't know.
It's really great to watch bob and weave between Governor Kasich on the one hand and Batchelder and Faber on the other. Look, in a rational world, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Expanding Medicaid would bring $13 billion into this state. It would provide health insurance for 275,000 of Ohio's working poor, and it would cost us exactly nothing for the first 3 years and never more than 10 cents on the dollar. Now, when you realize that under the current Medicaid plan, we're paying 60 cents on the dollar, this is a bargain for the ages. But see,
Dale, if you believe that I got swampland in Florida,
if I believe what, Bob?
You believe everything about you're saying about the federal government being there and you have the money.
What I'm saying is they've never defaulted yet in 50 years, Bob.
Yeah. Let's get
what this is about is Obamacare. You hate it, and that's what
now,
you want to do.
The majority of Ohioans hate it too, Dale.
So the thing with Capri Cafaro's proposal, I think, is she rolled it out there to sort of express frustration at the fact that there has been kind of this deadlock going on between the Kasich administration and the conservatives in the legislature. They can't seem to get past it. There's a lot of moving around on which dates they want to try to get something through, and it's still an open question about what's going to happen.
Jim, is it going to happen? They promised a vote in the fall. Bill Batchelder promised a vote in the fall. On what is the question, I guess?
Well, on what is the question? And again, they continue to talk about it in terms of these other Medicaid, as they call them, reforms. Helping folks get onto drug and alcohol treatment and workforce development and other things that they want to see first, and they want to control the costs. That's what they keep talking about, doing things to do that. And then they said, and once that's done, then we'll talk about the expansion part of it. And I think the reason they're doing that is it's largely a political problem. They don't want to bring the expansion in right away and have that dominate the conversation. They want to try to get the other things taken care of and then bring expansion at the end. Hopefully that will keep enough of their supporters on board. There are some in the House who believe that this would probably pass with 60+ votes if it was put up. And so
it would be two separate bills?
Well, they're talking about several bills. It could end up being merged into one at the end. I mean, I'm under the belief that it probably will happen at some point, simply because of the list of supporters right now is very large.
Well, Bob, how serious is this primary challenge threat? I mean, you talk in political circles, you move in those. I mean, are there really legitimate challengers out there who would challenge a conservative Republican in a rural district in Ohio?
No, I don't think I have not heard any underground movement to go after legislators if they vote for Medicaid expansion.
They're going after Barb Sears.
Well, I mean, there's nothing organized out there where there's, groups of them that are going to be going after everybody. I think it's a policy issue. It may be what he was saying about regards to having other aspects of Medicaid dealt with before you do an expansion. This is more of a policy issue. It's not a political issue.
Look, this thing is supported across the political spectrum, from organized labor to the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, to even Right to Life. They're all supporting it. The only people who aren't are the Tea Party and their allies in the legislature. Bob, I've got one question for you. You just said a moment ago this is really about Obamacare. Here's my question. For 3 years, your party has been saying repeal and replace Obamacare. After 3 years, Bob, what's your replacement? What do you have?
You won't let us repeal it. You guys stop
What's
the
replacement,
every
Bob?
time. We can't replace until we repeal. Dale.
So you vote
and
39.
That's why a majority of Ohioans and a majority of Americans are for repeal of Obamacare.
All right, let's move on to repeal and replace. Anyway, the quasi-private development agency Jobs Ohio is supposed to make the state more business friendly. Well, the Dayton Daily News reports this week members of the Jobs Ohio board are quite friendly with the firms which got state grants. Laura Bischoff reports 6 of the 9 Jobs Ohio board members have ties to firms that received grants. Now, Jobs Ohio and the Kasich administration say the grants came before Jobs Ohio began its work, and there is no conflict of interest. Laura Bischoff, that's their story, that these grants came well before Jobs Ohio took place, and there's safeguards against conflicts of interest.
Yes, but at the same time, these companies are listed as having received help in the Jobs Ohio annual reports and quarterly updates. So it's a little confusing. On one hand, they say, these tax incentives and grants and loans and the rest, all this packaging of stuff came before we even got going, right? And then on the other hand, they had them all listed as like they're taking credit for it. I think that it just sort of shows that that this board is going. I think they're going to continue to have problems with questions over transparency.
How close are the ties between these members and the companies?
For example, the board chairman is James Bolin of Cleveland. He's been on the Sherwin-Williams board of directors since 1998. He's a major stockholder, and this Sherwin-Williams got a $5.8 million tax break from the state. The state started that project, but Jobs Ohio finished on the tail end of that. Another example would be, Bob Evans received an $11 million package to move from the south side of Columbus out to New Albany, and I think one of their subsidiaries, Kettle Creations, received some sort of assistance, and both Gordon Gee and Steve Davis. Steve Davis is the CEO of Bob Evans, and Gordon Gee is on the Bob Evans board, and so they're handsomely compensated for that work, and they hold stock in that company. And
so, Bob, is this not, again, continued trouble for Jobs Ohio, at least on a perception level, that there's something going on there?
If they were clairvoyant and knew that they were going to appoint these members when they gave the packages originally, I would say, that there could have been a problem. But I mean, they don't vote on the stimulus packages. That decision's made by another entirely different area of Jobs Ohio. So not only did it occur before the board members were named, that they were decided by somebody that's totally different. They have a conflict of interest provisions there. People can't vote on things if they're going to gain from it. So that's pretty clear cut. The other thing is these are packages for job creation, correct, or for expansion of companies. They have to do something to get those. It's not like they're just giving it free.
Yeah, but at the same time, their conflict of interest policy mirrors what is done in nonprofits, and it basically calls for self-regulation. The legislature specifically exempted Jobs Ohio directors and employees from the ethics laws, and so it's much weaker than what we have, for everybody else.
Now, Dale, the argument is, if you want to be a good development agency and you want to attract businesses, you need top-level business people to be on this board, to know how they think, to get involved, to get in with the movers and shakers. So how can you have that expertise without, at some point, having possibly even a perception of a conflict?
Well, the first thing I would say is I want to give props to Laura Bischoff here, our colleague, who this is the latest in a string of first-rate investigative pieces that she's done. Now, with regard to your question, I find it hard to, I understand the desire to have experienced business people. I find it hard to believe that in the entire state of Ohio, that Governor Kasich couldn't find somebody who hasn't taken a handout from him or Jobs Ohio to serve on this board. And I want to say one other thing with regard to conflicts of interest. In 2011, Worthington Industries, Jobs Ohio, gave two Worthington Industries subsidiaries hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax breaks. Just a week after one of those tax breaks, which was worth $110,000, went through, the Worthington CEO gave Governor Kasich a $10,000 campaign contribution. Now, if that's not a quid pro quo and a conflict of interest, it will do until one comes along.
Bob, want to quickly respond, then we'll move on to our next topic.
No, I mean, nobody has anything that there's a quid pro quo. You can say there is, there isn't. Same thing Democrats have when public employees unions give them campaign contributions and they turn around and give them pay raises that the very next year. I mean, there's conflicts of interest there too, but they don't want to talk about that.
All right, our final topic as the search for his replacement continues. Gordon Gee and Ohio State have settled on his new role and how much the former university president will be paid. OSU trustees and Gee settled on a nearly $6 million package. Gee gets $1.5 million up front and will be paid at $400,000 a year over the next 5 years to lecture at the law school and perform university outreach. Laura Bischoff, his contract has been controversial in his whole tenure, and now this pay package certainly is controversial as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I wasn't really surprised, though. I mean, given his pay package, that he was the highest paid public university president in the nation. I think he was bumped out of that spot for 1 year, but I think that
because of Graham Spanier's buyout. That's
right,
why,
exactly,
Penn State,
exactly.
That's why he was bumped out.
So it doesn't surprise me that the board would be so generous in this regard. It's what one-time payment of $1.5 million, an annual salary of $410,000, this $300,000 grant that he can use as he wishes. They're going to outfit a whole office for him, secretary, premium parking, health care, moving and storage expenses, and they're letting him stay at the Pizzuti House until the end of September.
Now, if he had just walked away, his contract called for him to get $4.5 million, and he wouldn't have any obligations to the university. So here it's more expensive, but at least he works for 5 years.
I think they actually saved some money on the deal, the university will. And the other thing is, so many times a college president retires and actually really does retire. I mean, Gordon Gee's not going to retire. He's going to still be working. And, I mean, you can't argue the guy is a great fundraiser for Ohio State University, and I think he's going to continue on doing that. And I think they're going to get their money's worth out of it.
Yeah, well, let me just say that Laura Bischoff here did a piece on this not too long ago, last year actually, and what we found out...
Is he your PR guy or what?
But
what is this?
And what we found out is that when you look at universities like the University of Texas, the University of Michigan, which actually are better ranked academically than we are, their presidents actually raise more money than Gordon Gee does, and they get paid half of what he gets paid.
Jim, are lawmakers paying attention to this real quick?
Oh, I'm sure they are. And there's not all of them. But some of them do get kind of aggravated by the salaries at the universities. And I'm sorry, when you can say the phrase "we saved money by paying our retiring president $5.8 million," you would think that would draw some attention.
Yeah, I just want to say one.
We got to get to off the record, so save it for that. We got a minute and a half left. Bob, off the record comment.
The good news from Obamacare just keeps on coming. Mary Taylor in the Department of Insurance just announced this afternoon that premiums for individuals under Obamacare in Ohio will be going up 41%, and for small businesses, they'll be going up 18%. And you wonder why a majority of Ohioans and a majority of Americans want to repeal that thing.
You would agree that's not exactly an independent study, though, right?
No, it is. They used actuarials from the insurance industry.
It's a crock. They didn't look at the premium supports, but leave that aside. Look, if you're looking for a good place to take the family before school starts and summer ends, let me suggest a visit to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. They have a new special exhibit there on the Rolling Stones and their 50-year career. Not just for us old folks. Yeah. We took our 30-year-old son and his wife. They liked it as much as we did. See Ohio first this summer.
And Jim?
Campaign finance reports recently released, the first ones for this new cycle, and Democrats across the statewide ticket showed, if nothing else, signs of life, which is a good thing for those of us who like competitive elections.
And Laura.
And Tom Charles retired as Department of Public Safety Director. He's in negotiations with Jobs Ohio for some undefined role. I predict the role will be like a mini Inspector General in there, but I think his ties to the Kasich administration will continue to be an issue.
Just got back from vacation in North Carolina, and there's a lot of Ohio dollars that are going to North Carolina based on the license plates that I saw down there. So what we need is a beach, an ocean beach, to save Ohio. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the conversation at Facebook and on Twitter, and at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.